Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in our lives when we feel overwhelmed, uncertain, and even distant from the plans that God has laid out for us. We question, we doubt, and we wonder if anything is truly happening in the unseen. But I want to tell you today, my friend, that God is always working on our behalf. He is preparing us for something far greater than we can imagine. It's easy to get lost in the waiting, to lose faith in the silence, but I am here to remind you, God is preparing you to receive blessings, and you may not even realize it yet. The first sign that God is preparing you is when you feel a deep stirring in your heart, a longing that can't be ignored. You begin to sense that there is more to life, more to your purpose. This desire is not by accident. It's God calling you to greater things. He is placing within you the dream that you need to pursue. The stirring you feel is the first indication that He is at work. You might be uncertain about how it will all unfold, but understand that this is God's way of preparing you for something far beyond what you've known. Another sign of preparation is when doors begin to close. You might have once felt secure in a job, a relationship, or a situation, but suddenly things aren't what they once were. It seems as though opportunities are slipping through your fingers, and you wonder what went wrong. I want to assure you, my friend, that God's timing is perfect. When He closes one door, He is opening another, one that leads you to something greater. Trust that this moment of transition is not a setback, but a setup for the blessings that await you. It may be uncomfortable, but sometimes it's through the discomfort that God makes room for what He's about to do in your life. The third sign is that you find yourself walking through seasons of growth. You feel like you're being stretched, challenged, and refined in ways that you didn't expect. You may feel like you're being tested, and at times it might seem as though the pressure is too much to bear. But this is exactly where God wants you. He is preparing you to handle the weight of the blessings He has in store. In moments of growth, you learn patience, resilience, and perseverance. These are the qualities you'll need to sustain you as you enter into the new season that God is preparing for you. Remember, it's through the testing that we grow stronger, and through the trials, our character is shaped. Next, when you begin to see things fall into place, even in unexpected ways, know that God is preparing you. Perhaps there's been a time in your life when you were struggling to see how everything could ever come together. And then, just when you least expect it, things start to align. You receive a call, a connection, or an opportunity that you never saw coming. This is God's hand working behind the scenes, aligning your steps and opening doors that no one can shut. He is orchestrating your life, and it's all part of His divine plan to prepare you for the blessings He's about to pour out. Another sign is when you experience a deep sense of peace, even in the midst of uncertainty. When life is chaotic and the world around you seems to be falling apart, God's peace is like an anchor for your soul. This peace is not something that comes from your circumstances, but from the assurance that God is in control. You might not have all the answers, but you know that God is leading you. This peace is a sign that He's preparing you to receive blessings, because only when we are at peace in our hearts can we fully appreciate the goodness that God is about to pour into our lives. The sixth sign that God is preparing you for blessings is when He begins to refine your relationships. You might find yourself letting go of toxic relationships, and you may feel the pull to surround yourself with people who encourage you in your faith and walk with God. This is not by chance. God is removing distractions and bringing people into your life who will help you grow, support you, and walk alongside you as you enter into your season of blessings. He knows the people you need to help you thrive in His plans, and He is aligning them with you. Lastly, the final sign that God is preparing you is when you begin to trust Him more deeply than ever before. You are no longer relying on your own understanding or your own strength. Instead, you are leaning fully on Him, surrendering your plans, your fears, and your worries. Trusting God completely is the ultimate preparation to receive the blessings He has for you, because when you surrender, you make space for His will to unfold in your life. God cannot bless you with what He has planned for you if you are holding on to your own way of doing things. But when you let go, when you trust Him, that's when He can move in ways that will leave you in awe. So, today, remember that God is preparing you. If you are experiencing any of these signs in your life, take heart. He is not distant. He is at work in ways that you cannot see. And when the time is right, He will bless you beyond measure. Trust His process, because He is faithful and His plans for you are good. There are moments in our lives when we experience a stirring within us, a deep, almost irresistible longing that seems to come from the very core of our being. It's not something we can easily explain or even fully understand. It's as if something greater is calling us, urging us toward a purpose we can't yet define. This is the first sign that God is preparing you for something greater. This stirring is not by accident, nor is it simply the result of our own desires or dreams. It is God's voice, His call to something far beyond what we could imagine or accomplish on our own. This inner stirring is often felt as a deep sense of discontent with the status quo. You might feel restless, as if something is missing, even though everything on the outside appears to be fine. Perhaps you've experienced a period in your life where you were simply going through the motions, working, living, and existing, but there was no sense of real fulfillment or purpose. You did your best to keep up with the demands of daily life, but something deep inside was telling you that there was more. It's not that what you were doing was bad. It's just that there was a divine hunger within you that could not be satisfied by the ordinary. This stirring, this longing, is the beginning of God's preparation in your life. It's His way of waking you up to the deeper purpose He has for you. It's easy to ignore, to push aside, or to dismiss as a passing feeling. But when God is at work in your life, that feeling won't go away. It will persist, sometimes growing stronger and more urgent with time, until you can no longer ignore it. You may feel as though you are being led down a path that is unfamiliar, maybe even uncomfortable, but that is often the very place where God is calling you to step out in faith. This stirring is not just about an emotional desire or fleeting excitement. It is often accompanied by a deep sense of knowing that there is a purpose for your life, a reason you were created. You might not have the full picture or know exactly how things will unfold, but deep within, you begin to sense that God has a plan for you. You realize that there is something in you, something unique, that God intends to use for His glory. It is not about what the world tells you to do or who the world says you should be. It's about the voice of God guiding you toward your true calling. In this moment, it's essential to understand that this stirring doesn't always come with immediate clarity. Sometimes it feels like a whisper, faint and barely noticeable, yet undeniable. Other times it might feel like a deep ache in your soul, an unsettling realization that you were made for something more. And while it may not always be comfortable, that stirring is a sign that God is actively preparing you. It's His invitation for you to align with His will and step into the plans He has uniquely designed for your life. It's important to remember that this stirring doesn't happen in isolation. God uses various means to awaken our hearts to His calling. Sometimes it may come through the words of a sermon, a conversation with a friend, or a moment of prayer where you feel His presence deeply. Other times, it might come in the form of a struggle or a challenge that forces you to examine your life and consider your purpose. Whatever the form, the message is the same. God is stirring something within you. He is calling you to a deeper place, to a higher purpose. This stirring is not just about your dreams or desires. It's about God's perfect will for your life. It is a divine invitation to step away from the ordinary and into the extraordinary. God is calling you to live beyond your own limitations and to trust Him to bring you to a place of greater blessing, fulfillment, and purpose. The stirring is a signal that God is preparing you for the next step in your journey. A step that will require faith, courage, and obedience. It's an invitation to trust that God knows the path ahead, even when you cannot see it clearly. In the midst of this stirring, you may face doubts, fear, or confusion. The unknown can be intimidating, and stepping into the unknown often requires courage. But God never calls us without equipping us. As He stirs your heart, He is also preparing your mind and spirit to walk in faith. He will provide the guidance, the strength, and the resources you need to fulfill His calling. The stirring is not just a signal of what's to come. It is also a reminder that God is with you every step of the way, preparing you to receive His blessings as you walk in obedience to His call. In life, we often experience moments when things don't go as we expect or hope. We face setbacks, challenges, and disappointments that seem to lead us in the opposite direction of where we thought we were supposed to be. The job offer falls through, a relationship ends, or plans crumble in ways that leave us wondering, why is this happening? But let me tell you, friend, this is not the end of your story. In fact, it could very well be the beginning of God preparing you for the blessings that lie ahead. When doors close in your life, it's often a sign that God is redirecting you to something better, something more aligned with His purpose for you. We all have dreams, aspirations, and desires. We envision a certain future, and we work tirelessly toward achieving it. But sometimes, despite our best efforts, things don't turn out the way we expect. It can feel like we're being held back, like we've been denied something we truly wanted. We may feel frustrated, defeated, or even discouraged. However, we must remember that God is not bound by our limited understanding. While we may see closed doors as obstacles, God sees them as opportunities. He knows what's ahead, and He knows that there are better paths waiting for us, even if we can't see them in the moment. When God closes a door, He does so for a reason. Often it's because He has something better planned for us, something that will fulfill our purpose in ways we cannot yet imagine. The door we thought we wanted may not have been the right one for us, and in His infinite wisdom, God knows this. He understands that sometimes we need to be redirected in order to align with His perfect will. The closed door is not a rejection, but a redirection, a reminder that God's plan for us is far greater than anything we could have planned on our own. It's important to understand that God is not punishing us when doors close. He is protecting us. He is protecting us from opportunities that might have led us down paths that were not meant for us. He is protecting our hearts from hurt, disappointment, or failure. While we may not understand the reasons behind a closed door, God sees the bigger picture. He sees what's best for us, even when we can't see it ourselves. In these moments, we are called to trust. Trust that God knows what He is doing, even when we don't have all the answers. Trust that He is working behind the scenes, making arrangements, aligning circumstances, and opening doors that we could never open on our own. Trust that He is leading us towards something better, even if it doesn't look the way we expected. Sometimes, closed doors also serve as a test of our faith and patience. We might find ourselves feeling frustrated or disheartened by the lack of progress, but these moments are often opportunities for growth. God is teaching us to rely on Him more fully, to trust His timing, and to wait patiently for the right moment. It's in these moments of waiting that our faith is strengthened and our dependence on God deepens. We learn to surrender our plans and desires to Him, allowing Him to lead us according to His will, not ours. There's also a deeper lesson to be learned in how we respond when doors close. It's easy to become bitter or resentful when things don't go our way, but God calls us to respond with grace, peace, and trust. When we can let go of our own expectations and surrender to God's will, we open ourselves up to His blessings in ways we never could have imagined. The closed door is not an obstacle to overcome, but a part of God's plan to prepare us for the next chapter of our journey. As we navigate the moments when doors close, we must remember that God is always with us. He is never distant, never unaware of our struggles or our disappointments. He is working in ways that we can't always see, preparing us for the blessings He has in store. Sometimes the best thing we can do is stop trying to force open doors that God has closed and instead trust that He will open the right doors at the right time. When we learn to surrender to His timing and trust His process, we find peace in knowing that God's plan is always for our good. And when the right doors finally open, we will see that they lead us to the blessings He has been preparing for us all along. There are seasons in life when we feel as though we are being pushed beyond our limits, stretched in ways that seem unbearable. Life may become a constant challenge, and we find ourselves in situations that test our patience, our faith, and our resilience. These moments can often feel uncomfortable, even painful, but they are also some of the most significant signs that God is preparing us for something greater. It is through these seasons of growth, when we are tested and refined, that we become the people God has called us to be. It is in these moments that God shapes our character, strengthens our faith, and prepares us for the blessings He has in store. When we go through challenging times, it is easy to feel as though God is distant or that we are being abandoned. We might ask ourselves, why is this happening to me? Why does life feel so hard? But we must understand that God's purpose in our lives is not to make us comfortable, but to make us capable. He wants to equip us to handle the blessings He will pour out upon us, and this requires growth. Just as a seed must break through the soil, grow through the darkness, and endure the elements in order to produce fruit, so too must we endure the trials and challenges of life to develop the strength and maturity needed for God's purpose. In these seasons, we are often faced with difficulties that force us to rely on God in a way we may never have done before. Whether it's a health crisis, financial struggles, relationship issues, or the loss of something dear to us, these challenges have a way of humbling us. They make us aware of our limitations, our need for God, and our inability to handle things on our own. This is exactly where God wants us to be, dependent on Him. It is in our weakness that God's strength is most evident, and it is in our brokenness that His healing power can shine the brightest. The process of growth is often uncomfortable, even painful, because it requires us to let go of old ways of thinking, old habits, and old mindsets. We are being refined like gold in the fire, and the process is not always easy. The fire purifies, removes impurities, and makes us stronger. It's the same in our lives. God uses the challenges and struggles to refine us, to strip away the things that are not helpful to our growth, and to build character, patience, and faith. This refinement is not a punishment, but a preparation for what is to come. Without this process, we would not be able to handle the blessings that God has in store for us. During these times of growth, we may also begin to realize that some of the things we once thought we wanted or needed are no longer as important to us. God may be removing distractions from our lives so that we can focus more fully on His will and His purpose for us. Sometimes we hold on to things, relationships, positions, material things, because they give us a sense of security or satisfaction. But God knows that in order for us to be truly ready for His blessings, we need to let go of these things and place our full trust in Him. It's only when we are fully surrendered to His will, when we trust Him completely, that we are ready to receive the good things He has prepared for us. It's also during these seasons of growth that we begin to develop the qualities we will need to carry the blessings God is preparing for us. God is shaping us into people who will be able to manage and steward His gifts well. Whether it's the ability to lead with wisdom, serve with humility, or handle wealth and influence with integrity, God is preparing us to handle what He wants to give us. The challenges we face, though difficult, are shaping us into individuals who will be able to carry the weight of the blessings God desires to give us. This transformation takes time, and it requires us to trust the process. Ultimately, the goal of this growth is not just about enduring challenges, but about becoming more like Christ. It is about being conformed to His image, developing the character and qualities that reflect His love, compassion, and strength. As we grow, we begin to see the world differently. Our hearts are softened, our perspectives are broadened, and we are able to see God's hand at work in ways we never could have before. We learn to rely on Him more fully, to trust Him more deeply, and to serve Him more faithfully. All of this is part of God's preparation to bless us, not just with material gifts, but with a deeper understanding of His love and purpose. Through the process of growth, we are not only being prepared to handle blessings, but we are also being prepared to be a blessing to others. As we experience God's work in our lives, we become vessels through which His love and grace can flow to those around us. It is in the growth and refinement process that we begin to see the broader picture of God's kingdom and how He intends to use us to impact the world for His glory. There are times in life when we are working hard, putting in effort, and striving toward our goals, but things just don't seem to be coming together. We may feel as though we're putting our heart and soul into something, but no matter how much effort we exert, it feels like the pieces aren't aligning. It's easy to become discouraged during these seasons of waiting. But let me tell you, when things start falling into place in unexpected ways, when opportunities align that you never could have planned for, it is often a clear sign that God is at work behind the scenes. This divine orchestration is one of the clearest signs that God is preparing you to receive the blessings He has in store. There are times when we may be so focused on our own plans, our own timeline, and the way we think things should happen, that we fail to see the hand of God moving in our lives. We set goals, we create a path, and we assume that we know the direction we need to go. Yet, as we press on, it becomes apparent that the road we thought we were supposed to take may not be the one that leads us to our true purpose. And in these moments, when things seem to fall apart, it's actually God clearing the way for something better, something that we couldn't have orchestrated on our own. God has a way of working in our lives that transcends our understanding, aligning circumstances and opening doors in ways that surprise us. Sometimes things fall into place in ways that we could never have predicted. An unexpected phone call, a chance meeting, or an opportunity that we thought was far out of reach suddenly becomes available. These moments, though they may seem random or coincidental, are often God's timing at work. What may have seemed like a setback or a disappointment earlier in the journey suddenly begins to make sense as we look back and see how everything has come together. This is God's divine plan unfolding in ways we could never have imagined. He is opening doors and arranging things to align with His purpose for us, and we simply need to trust in the timing. When these unexpected alignments begin to happen, it's important to acknowledge that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't match our own. We may have thought we knew exactly when things should happen, but God knows the right time for each blessing to come into our lives. His understanding far surpasses ours, and His timing is always right. It's in these moments of divine alignment that we can see God's faithfulness in action, knowing that He is at work in the background, making connections, moving people, and orchestrating circumstances in a way that leads us exactly where we need to go. What's important in these seasons is to stay open to the unexpected. We often spend so much time focusing on the how and the when that we miss the opportunities right in front of us. God doesn't always work in ways that fit our expectations. He works in ways that challenge us, stretch our faith, and often take us outside of our comfort zones. When things start falling into place, we may find ourselves stepping into situations or opportunities that we didn't anticipate. These moments require us to step out in faith, trusting that God is leading us into something new, something bigger than we could have imagined on our own. It's also important to recognize that the things falling into place may not always appear to be exactly what we envisioned. We may have had a specific outcome in mind, but God, in His infinite wisdom, is guiding us toward a greater purpose. The blessing we receive may not look exactly like the one we imagined, but it will be better than we ever could have planned. This is why it's so important to remain flexible and open to God's leading. As we trust Him, we open ourselves up to the possibilities He has prepared for us, knowing that His plans are always for our good. When doors begin to open and things start to align, we are reminded that God is always at work in our lives, even when we can't see it. His hand is constantly moving behind the scenes, working out the details, setting things up for us. It's easy to doubt and wonder if we're making any progress when things aren't going according to plan. But when things begin to fall into place, we are reminded that God's timing is always perfect and that His purpose for our lives is unfolding in ways that we couldn't orchestrate on our own. This divine alignment is not something that happens by chance. It is a direct result of God's sovereignty and His perfect will. We don't have to force things to happen, nor do we need to worry about how things will work out. God is already working on our behalf, arranging the pieces and putting things in place for us. Our job is to remain faithful, stay obedient, and trust that He is at work, even in the moments when we can't see it. And when everything begins to fall into place, we will see that it was all part of God's beautiful plan, leading us to the blessings He has prepared for us. There are times in life when we find ourselves in the midst of uncertainty, facing situations where the way forward is unclear and the path seems foggy. In these moments, we may feel a sense of fear or doubt creeping in, wondering how things will turn out or if we're making the right decisions. Yet, in the midst of this uncertainty, we often experience something profound, an overwhelming sense of peace. It's a peace that doesn't make sense according to the circumstances. It's a peace that transcends understanding, a peace that assures us that God is in control and that we are exactly where He wants us to be. This peace is one of the clearest signs that God is preparing us for something greater, something we may not yet fully understand. When we are walking through a season of waiting or difficulty, we may not have all the answers. We may not know how the situation will resolve or what the future holds, but there is a quiet confidence that settles deep within us, a confidence that comes from knowing that God is guiding us. This peace doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from knowing that God's presence is with us and that He is faithful to His promises. In moments of uncertainty, when everything around us seems to be in turmoil, this peace is a direct reminder that God is preparing us to receive His blessings. It's a reminder that, though we may not be able to see the end result, God has already gone ahead of us and is making a way. The peace that God gives is not like the peace the world offers. The world's peace is often temporary, dependent on favorable circumstances and fleeting. But the peace God offers is constant, unshakable, and unchanging. It is a peace that surpasses understanding because it is not based on what we see with our eyes, but on what we know in our hearts, that God is sovereign, that He is in control, and that His plan for us is good. Even in the most difficult of times, we can experience this peace when we trust that God is working behind the scenes for our good. It is in this peace that God often prepares our hearts to receive the blessings He has in store for us. This peace also serves as a confirmation that God is guiding us. There are times when we are faced with decisions, big or small, and we are unsure of the direction to take. The world offers countless opinions, and our own thoughts can become clouded by fear or uncertainty. Yet, when we are walking in God's will, we will often experience an inner peace that settles our hearts and minds, confirming that we are on the right path. This peace is the assurance that God is with us, that we don't have to make every decision perfectly, and that even when we don't have all the answers, God is leading us step by step. The peace we feel is also a sign that we are growing in trust. The more we walk with God, the more we learn to trust Him with every aspect of our lives. In the past, we may have tried to control everything, striving for security and certainty. But as we experience God's peace, we are reminded that true security comes from surrendering to Him. We don't have to know every detail or understand every step of the journey. All we need to do is trust that God is good, that He knows what He is doing, and that He will bring us through whatever we face. This trust deepens as we learn to lean into God's peace, allowing it to anchor our hearts in the midst of the storms of life. Moreover, the peace we experience in uncertain times also serves to calm our fears. Fear is a powerful emotion that can paralyze us, causing us to hesitate or make decisions based on anxiety rather than faith. But when God's peace settles in our hearts, it pushes out fear. It quiets the voice of doubt and replaces it with the assurance that God is with us, that He has a plan, and that we are safe in His hand. This peace enables us to step forward in faith, even when the future seems uncertain. Because we know that God is in control. It empowers us to trust Him, even when we cannot see what lies ahead, because we are certain that His plans are for our good. As we experience this peace, we also begin to understand that God's preparation in our lives isn't always about external circumstances. It's about the work He is doing within us. He is preparing our hearts, our minds, and our spirits to receive the blessings He has for us. This peace is an essential part of that preparation. It's God's way of telling us that we don't need to strive or struggle to make things happen. We don't need to worry or fear the unknown. Instead, we can rest in His peace, knowing that He is leading us towards something greater. In this place of peace, we are able to receive His blessings with gratitude and humility, understanding that all of it comes from His hand. In conclusion, the peace we experience in uncertain times is one of the clearest signs that God is preparing us to receive His blessings. It is a peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, that He is faithful, and that He is working in our lives. This peace anchors our hearts, calms our fears, and reminds us to trust in God's perfect timing and His perfect plan. As we embrace this peace, we can move forward with confidence, knowing that God is preparing us for the blessings He is about to pour out. As we reflect on these signs, God closing doors to redirect us, challenging us to grow, aligning circumstances in unexpected ways, and filling us with peace in times of uncertainty, let us remember that God is always at work in our lives. Each step, each trial, and every moment of waiting is part of His divine plan to prepare us for the blessings He has already ordained. We may not always understand the process, but we can trust that His timing is perfect, His ways are higher, and His love is unshakable. God is molding us, shaping our character, and leading us to a place where we can receive His blessings with open hearts. It is through the refining fires of life that we become vessels ready to handle the greatness He has in store. We don't need to fear the unknown or struggle to force things to happen. All we need to do is trust in His plan, knowing that in due time He will open the right doors, provide the right opportunities, and bring us to the place where His blessings will overflow. As you continue your journey, let the peace that surpasses understanding guard your heart. Know that God is preparing you for something greater, and as you walk with Him, your life will be filled with the fullness of His love, His provision, and His grace. The blessings are coming, and you are being prepared to receive them. Trust in God's process, for He is faithful to complete the work He has started in you.